It's the weekend. Welcome to Mass United Insurance's Line and Length. It's the cricket program where we look at the sport not only in the region but internationally as well. I'm Barry Wilkinson. Hello to all of our friends on Digicel, Sportsmax or Scene TV or wherever you're watching this broadcast. What a dreadful week it has been for cricket, not only in the West Indies but internationally. We all know very well about what happened to Phil Hughes and that terrible blow that he suffered while playing, of course, for Western Australia in the Sheffield Shield. It's really devastating. On today's program, we talk to a sports physician who knows all too well about blows like those and also explains just why perhaps Phil Hughes would have been so devastated by that blow. Llewyn Harper is on our program, and a bit later on we hear from a veteran sports journalist about this ongoing PCL regional cricket tournament. All to watch in this edition of Mass United Insurance's Line and Length.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
I live cool, I live fresh, I live life without the stress. Every day I feel my best, I live cool with Lime Call. Feel the energy, feel the breeze, I feel like doing as I please. Relaxation comes with these, I live cool with Lime Call.
Live cool with Lime Call and feel the freshness of a breeze in a bottle. Lime Call is trusted the world over and gives that easy, breezy Caribbean feel to all.
Every day I feel my best, I live cool with Lime Call.
And welcome back to Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. And as promised, Dr. Llewyn Harper is in the house. And Dr. Harper is going to be discussing the unfortunate incident with Phil Hughes in Australia. Llewyn, certainly perhaps one of the most catastrophic things that could happen to any cricketer. Take us through the incident, having been hit on the head by a rising ball from Sean Abbott.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. It's a very, very catastrophic and unfortunate incident indeed. The thing is that this could perhaps not have been presented, as the helmet maker himself and that company has indicated. This was hit, he was hit below the line of the helmet, where the helmet would protect. I've only seen the incident myself in stills, but from reports I understand he was bleeding from his ear as well. So he probably was hit around the mastoid bone, that's the bone just below the ear, and probably also on the occipital bone, that's the bone beneath or the back of the head, the back of the skull, the last part of the skull. Unfortunately, it obviously was a very significant injury, caused some bleeding in the brain. I'm only supposing, because we don't have the particulars, but caused some bleeding in the brain, probably leading to an epidural bleed. This is a bleed between the membrane, the outer covering of the brain, and the bone itself. And this was likely what caused him to have collapsed.
Now, you've just gone through some very technical terms there, Llewyn. Sure. Take us through in some basic normal language. What would have happened? Because I saw on the video that he actually bobbled quite a bit before he collapsed. In other words, there was something going on prior to the fall. Sure.
Once he was hit, naturally a ball at that speed would have caused damage. He would have had some bleeding. Clearly we saw blood from his ear, or at least it was reported. So he would also have had some bleeding between the outer covering of the membrane and the bone itself. Now, it's a cage, a solid cage is the bone, and you wouldn't have a lot of area to expand. So what would happen is the bleeding would, as it accumulates, would press on the brain. So in the beginning, perhaps in his estimation, not a lot of problem. He felt pain. But then as the bleeding would have got larger, then he would have had some brain injury. traumatic brain injury, which would then have compromised perhaps his breathing, perhaps even his heartbeat, and that's when he would have fainted. Well, we saw him fall to his face, not even able to put out his hands.
Somewhat like a boxer, because it was reminiscent to me. I'm a fan of boxing. It was reminiscent of having been knocked out perhaps by a Mike Tyson blow.
Yeah, that's right, but that's more of a short circuit in the brain. This one would probably have been more of a bleed, which would have caused pressure on the brain, increased intracranial or pressure in the skull itself, and this is probably what caused him to collapse. More like, if you will, Michael Schumacher, who had an injury and therefore he collapsed after a while. But this one, being hit by a smaller object at very great velocity, would have caused significant bleeding, or probably caused significant bleeding just at the area that he was struck.
In terms of timings, we heard that they performed CPR on him for in excess of half hour prior to the ambulance arriving. Is that not an extraordinarily long time?
It is, absolutely. It indicates that the injury is probably more significant than one might have imagined. That just at the back of the brain is the brain stem, the part of the brain that is responsible for the vegetative functions, the functions like the beating of the heart, the breathing. Remember, we don't think about those things when we're breathing. We don't control our heartbeat by thinking about it. So therefore, what would have happened would be that once the brain stem was involved, what would have happened is his breathing would have stopped. His heart would have stopped or slowed down to the point where eventually it would have been, you would not have been able to detect it. And so therefore, to make sure that blood and therefore oxygen still got to the brain, that's why they perform CPR. The thing is, once the brain is starved of oxygen for any length of time, a few seconds, then that's where the real tragedy is. And people can come back from such traumatic brain injuries once there is oxygen getting to the brain immediately. And this is why they perform CPR, obviously to keep his heart going, obviously to keep him breathing, but the important thing is to get oxygen going to the brain, and this is why they kept doing it.
Another question, obviously, which would puzzle the viewers, why would they have induced a coma?
Right, a medically induced coma. First of all, a coma is where there is, you're unconscious and not being able to be roused, whether by deep pain or by any other stimulus. You're basically sleeping so deeply, and it's pretty much like if you're being anesthetized. Now, they would have induced this coma so that they could intubate him, put a tube down his throat, into his lungs, and breathe for him, ventilate him. And if you are conscious, obviously you're going to fight against the tube. Nobody's going to let you put a tube down the throat. So they would induce the coma so that they could intubate him, make sure that he got supplemental oxygen. But in addition to this, it would also be so that they could work on the increasing intracranial pressure. Remember, he had this blow to the head, probably a bleed, and so therefore the more the bleeding, the more the swelling, because as you know, any injury, you get swelling around it. So they would have tried all sorts of other agents and medication to try to bring the swelling down or to limit the swelling so that there would be no significant brain injury. So two things: one, to ventilate him, and two, to make sure that the intracranial pressure did not go up high enough to make him become a vegetable, basically. And
Llewyn, obviously the question which everyone would want to know, the prognosis of return for this type of injury. The doctor at the hospital in Australia is suggesting he at this stage cannot make any determination. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes it looks as if it's going to be really, really awful, but then if you remember, like Phil Simmons, who had a similar injury, not struck the same place, but a similar injury, he was out of the hospital in 8 days. Again, we mentioned Michael Schumacher. He took at least 3 months to come out of the hospital, and still he's not right. So you cannot say, certainly with any accuracy, but usually after about 6 to 8 weeks, if you have not woken up, if you have not been able to be taken off the ventilator or the respirator, and basically to be awakened and to perform things for yourself, then the prognosis becomes poorer. However, you know, there have been people in comas for months, weeks, months, who have come out and without any residual effect. So at this point in time, especially since we don't know the full extent of the injury, would be very, very difficult to say.
And psychologically for Phil Hughes himself, and also for fast bowler Sean Abbott.
Yeah, that's interestingly, there is no psychological problem for Phil at this point in time, but for Sean Abbott, the bowler, that's very, very difficult. Some people don't get over this, and they're not. How do you steam in and bowl at your next person thinking he's going to get hit? But for Hughes, that's going to be very much more difficult to say. People are different. Some people are very, very psychologically strong. Again, going back to mention Phil Simmons. He was able to go on and to play for the West Indies again at the top level after such a blow. Even when he was in his bed, as he reports, as he said in his own words, with all the tubes and whatnot, he was thinking, well, you know, when can I get up and go? But it's not easy, and yes, the psychological effect is really significant. And counseling for both of them and the other players who witnessed it, that would be an extraordinary part of the rehab.
But that's Dr. Llewyn Harper, and certainly with an interesting take on the issue of Phil Hughes. And you're watching Massey United Insurance's Line of Length, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
I live cool, I live fresh, I live life without the stress. Every day I feel my best, I live cool with Lymacol. Feel the energy, feel the breeze, I feel like doing as I please. Relaxation comes with these, I live cool with Lymacol.
Live cool with Lymacol and feel the freshness of a breeze in a bottle. Lymacol is trusted the world over and gives that easy, breezy Caribbean feel to all.
Every day I feel my best, I live cool with Lymacol.
Great stuff there from Dr. Llewyn Harper, explaining really why Phil Hughes has been in so much trouble, and it's indeed some very, very sad news. As we move on, though, Andrew's back in the studio with us, and it's a pleasure to have veteran sports journalist Sam Wilkinson. If you're wondering why he has the same last name as the host, probably because he's the man who made the host. Sam is, of course, my father, and as a veteran sportscaster, it's really good to have you on the program, and it's a pleasure to be able to call you Sam. At least for just one day.
Is it?
It is. No. Now, you know, Andrew, we've been all watching regional cricket. I think the first couple of rounds have gone rain affected in Barbados, or for Barbados, I should say. But generally, what is your thoughts on the regional competition with this new franchise system?
Well, first of all, though, Barry, that's pretty phenomenal. I think that my philosophical approach is a little different from all that. I believe that regional cricket is not necessarily about 10 matches or 5 matches. I think what's lacking and missing in regional cricket is there's no vision. There is nothing that the players must aspire to that leads to a conclusive approach that they wish to achieve the ultimate in their cricket. That is, in simple terms, every West Indian player should know before he starts or would have reached that level to play for his territory that there is a future based on 2 things. One has to be performance, and the other has to be participation.
So you don't the whole franchise thing doesn't really bother you?
Does not concern me in the least at all, because I think every boy in every region of the Caribbean has grown up with the concept that he wishes, or he wanted to play, or he's prepared to play for his country of birth, and that is an achievement. No one says you can't play for other territories or other places. That's absurd. But the reality is that from the time that one has begun to walk and talk about cricket, your aspiration, you wish to play for your country. You emulate those who will have gone before you. You aspire to attaining the heights of the ones whom you say were the outstanding players of your country. And I think that implicit in that must be the opportunity now to see where are we going in relation to those high ideals set by the great players of the past. I don't think if you ask a Barbadian player, whom do you wish to emulate and whom do you wish to copy in this tournament that would propel you to the high levels, a level well beyond your capability at the moment. I dare say, Barry and Andrew, if you get an answer that satisfies, call me.
But Sam, essentially what you're saying is that our whole focus in terms of regional cricket, in terms of West Indies cricket, has been lost. So you are suggesting we're going nowhere fast at the moment?
The identity has not been really clear at all. I believe that players in this competition, whether it's 5 rounds or 10 rounds, to me that's not the more material thing. And it's not novel either. We have had that before. I think that what is critically important is that every player should have a specific objective. And one criterion in the whole set of criteria should be, how do I measure up to achieve the objective to place Barbados or Guyana or Jamaica's cricket and ultimately West Indies cricket where it should be and not where it is. And I think that unless there's a roadmap, literally, I don't talk about people preparing and say we worked hard and we worked the next 3 days ago last week. I'm not talking about that physical preparation. I'm talking about attitudinal preparation based upon a specific mindset that to achieve the real objective, it requires more than net practice. For instance, I believe the preparation for the Barbados, Jamaica, Guyana, the teams in the tournament, the 6 teams, there are so many great West Indian players, so many outstanding icons, and we speak glibly of them. Oh, Sir Vivic is available, or the greatest of all is available. And how come that Sir Garfield Sobers hasn't been working with this team? Just glib talk. I'm saying that there are more than 6 outstanding great players born and bred and understood this cricket region better than anyone else in the world will ever have. I think one should be attached to every team so that that team has the benefit of sharing the concept of knowledge and inspirational motivation to go beyond where you are, to hear what it takes to go where you want to get and how you get there. And above all, to address concerns at source.
And this is what is done for the CPL, where there's a mentor for each team. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think it makes sense, but unfortunately, I think, Sam, we have reached the stage now where we've heard about the use of these mentors or senior players as part of the West Indies setup for so long now. I'm not sure that we've seen any positive result from it. I don't know if it's because of the nature of the way it was done, or the fact that the players, the mentors themselves, never really felt a part of the scenario because it was always a short-term situation. I think that's something we need to be also careful of, because if we introduce them, I think it has to be on a long-term basis for the proper effect to take place.
You have just struck the nail on the head when you said long-term basis. The person of whom I speak today has nothing to do with the game-by-game situation at all. The person of whom I'm speaking now has a peripheral role beyond the A game and dropping in to see how you're going.
Beyond between November and March.
The person of whom I speak is an integral part of the country's development plan that leads to the association for the growth of the players. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about people that go to the Biff Bath and sit with those people for long periods, you know, in a game. I'm talking an assignment whereby the person literally understands the electoral process, works with the players For example, let's say in Jamaica, for example, that Blackwood says, I don't understand why I'm getting out so frequently. But he might be in a better position to say to one of the great players, let's say it was a George Headley. Or even a Jeffrey Dujon. Jeffrey Dujon. Whatever, whomever you have, a Maurice Foster. You can call all the names you wish. And they'll say to him, but you know why you were getting out like that, Jermaine? Your head. Look at that video. Look where your head is, man. And the other morning at breakfast when we were demonstrating, you were doing the same thing that we told you not to do. When we went to bed last evening, what did they say before you go to bed? Play. And what did you do? So we're going to work on that the whole of today. Know that you've faltered and failed.
But Sam, now that you've said that, perhaps we are on the way to starting that. Because if we have introduced, as has happened with the franchise system, that the players are now actually being paid on a yearly basis, it perhaps now means that the opportunity for working with them on a continuing basis can perhaps continue.
Well, the payment situation is relative. I think that the person, again, of whom I speak, has to be a paid servant.
Well, exactly. So I'm saying, perhaps the start is now to pay the players initially, and maybe the coach and assistant coach, but down the road to get the mentors in place on a long-term basis.
And a results-oriented approach to the person's selection as well, not only because the person is outstandingly great batsman or bowler or whatever, but the question you discuss with him, how is it with Braff now? How is it with Blackwood now? Are we satisfied that he's turned the corner in relation to those faults that you identified? And how can we really now say, can he carry on his own? Is he ready for the next level now? And those consultations are part of the developmental plan that is consistent with the board's development plan to see where our players are and where they can be positioned. Now, this tournament, I fail to see that happening. When you look at the scores and the way that people played in the first two games and the three-quarter one, 3 days have gone in this one, so 75% gone. But you haven't got a feel, a thrill, an exciting position. Something's happening. With all respect to plastic bag, very little has happened since it started because we're seeing the same approach to the same exercise addressed in the same way by the same people at the same time in the same places by a same approach called something else.
All right, well, good food for thought. When we come back on the show, we're going to just talk a little bit about the point system and also go around the world and see what's happening other places in world cricket. You're watching Massey United Insurance's Line and Length.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
I live cool, I live fresh, I live life without the stress. Every day I feel my best, I live cool with Lime Call. Feel the energy, feel the breeze, I feel like doing as I please. Relaxation comes with these, I live cool with Lime Call.
Live cool with Limacol and feel the freshness of a breeze in a bottle. Limacol is trusted the world over and gives that easy, breezy Caribbean feel to all.
Every day I feel my best, I live cool with Lime Call.
We're back on the program. Earlier, of course, we heard from Dr. Llewyn Harper. Sam Wilkinson still with us. And as we continue to look at what's happening in world cricket and also the PCL, I want to ask him this question because helmets have been an integral part of the game, but the point system in the PCL has also been a major talking point. What are your views on the point system?
I'm perfect, as you know, better than most people. I'm very old-fashioned in my approach. I said old-fashioned as against being an accepted status quo thing. I feel that the point system should be very simple and yet competitive. You should earn points for first innings, and you should earn points for a win. Bowling points are straightforward. Every team gets bowling points.
Once they bowl up,
because invariably, inevitably, teams will lose more than half their wickets in the prescribed time, whatever that situation is. And the team that does not lose those wickets in that prescribed time could be considered to be hopeless to weak in terms of its bowling. So there's no discussion of what you earn or what you deserve. So if you're an average team, you're going to get these similar bowling points as the better team, because they're going to bowl you out. So there's inequality that doesn't make sense for a numerical sequence to say you earn the points. You gain the points. I prefer to earn points. Conversely, batting over 110 overs to score 350 runs brings it into the phase of cricket that I do not subscribe to. Cricket is about a temperament and a mind-conditioned approach that does not worry about overs and time. It equates neither for the satisfaction of the game, but each has a role in that you may bat defensively and score, but you don't have to score in order to get the points. But you could determine what you wish. That's why I said a vision. Do we want to develop batsmen who have got character? Batsmen who can bat for long periods and score good scores without trying to get them in a prescribed time and fail. And then we say they lack the temperament and their shot selection. And their shot selection are poor. What shot selection? If you swipe, you're going to get out. As evidence in other various forms that you guys like so much.
Oh, talk about the other forms, Sam. I want to suggest to you that having to score 350 runs in 110 overs is an attempt to bring 50 over and T20 rules into 4 days.
Futile. One word, futile.
And you don't support it.
Futile.
Second question for Sam.
After that, there's no other questions. One last thing, very unfortunate what happened there to Phil Hughes. When you played cricket in your heyday, you were not a big helmet man. Helmet didn't save on this occasion.
Did they have any helmets then?
No, they didn't have any helmets then. But do you think there's any other piece of protective gear that a cricketer now can get to shield any other part of his body? I mean, what more can you have? There's pads all over, helmets. What else? What else is there to get?
Before you answer, Barry, do you have Ralph Thorne's number? I think I will need that based on the responses that I got there just now. Just let me say that, first of all, I really empathize, and in some ways I feel deeply saddened by Hughes' accident. When you saw it on television, you could feel really depressed as to what really transpired there. The helmet, of course, is a very useful piece of equipment, and of course we used it. I mean, just a few Saturdays ago we would have used it as well in Barbados' cricket here, local cricket. But I think that more importantly is not so much the use of the helmet. But I think that what has begun to show up here is that sometimes players, despite protective gear, they just relax or do something that is far differently from what they would have done if they might not have had a similar coverage of the gear.
Time he got hit on his head. Sharma also hit him on his head.
That is also so. But if you look at the film and you look at it, you can see there's almost an unusual approach to play the ball in that he was really literally backing the bowler when he in fact was struck at the back of his head or wherever. It's a painful and a pitiful thing to have happened, and one prays God will be there with him, and that we hope that for his recovery. We can only pray for his recovery, because no one likes to see any player in any sport at any time really suffer injury at all.
Wow, great stuff. So we're out of time, though. I want to thank Llewyn Harper, Dr. Llewyn Harper, Sam Wilkinson, and of course Andrew Seeley. That's it for another edition of Mass United Insurance's Line and Length. Next week we'll be coming to you from Guyana. Of course, this is going to be exciting there, as the Barbadian team will be playing against the host. Bye-bye for now.